Has 45 sealed his own fate? Um, I want to know what your thoughts are. So leave a comment in the comment sections um, and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Like the video, subscribe. But I do want to know your guys' thoughts on has 45 sealed his own fate or not. 5 months ago, 45 was an even bet for re-election. The Senate was about to reject his impeachment. The economic outlook was pretty bright, and Democrats were on the verge of ideological electoral jihad. This all had to come together for him as 45's approval rating never hit higher than 40-something%. About a month later, the Democrats miraculously coalesced behind the 77-year-old former vice president, the safest of all nominees, but 45 sealed his own fate. Engage in a moment of fantasy to imagine how a responsible repug squatter, a Jeb Bush or a John Kasich, might have responded to impeachment, the pandemic, and racial explosion. After the Senate acquittal, an adult squatter who wouldn't have committed impeachable offenses in the first place would have tempered his fury and declared this was unfortunate and unnecessary, but let's look ahead and not backwards. As Senator Susan Collins of Repug from Maine said, "I have learned from this and I'm ready to work with the Democrats." No, you haven't. Instead, 45 validated the opposition, lashing out, punishing those inside the administration who told the truth, delivering a childishly bitter State of the Union speech after refusing to shake hands with the Speaker of the House. There might still have been time to recoup within a month as the COVID-19 virus started to spread around the world. Health specialists, intelligence experts, and even his own trade advisor had warned that the pandemic was coming. The 45 message could have been, "This is exactly the time America needs a strong leader. That's why you elected me. Technically, we didn't elect you at all. There is a looming threat. We're going to get ahead of it. I am invoking the National Defense Protection Act for a crash program for more ventilators, testing, and personal protection equipment. Masks will be mandatory in larger gatherings. Social distancing will be the order of the day. We will lead a global Manhattan-type project to develop and distribute a vaccine as soon as possible. This effort will be led by retired General Stanley McChrystal, working with Dr. Anthony Fauci and the Centers for Disease Control. Americans know I have created the greatest economy of our lifetime. Technically, you didn't. There may be a temporary interruption as we guard against the threat, but if we're smart, we'll come roaring back instead." He and his dumbass son-in-law decided that nothing, including the deadly pandemic, can get in the way of a robust economy, his re-election calling card. So 45 insisted that there was no problem. He lied about what was being done, attacked Democratic governors who were taking it seriously, refused to accept any responsibility. He blamed the Chinese after he had praised them, undercut Dr. Anthony Fauci, and in a display of symbolic recklessness, he still refuses to wear a mask. On March 6, when he could have been whipping into action, there were 317 cases and 17 deaths in the U.S. 4 months later, there are now about 2.9 million cases and basically 130,000 plus deaths. Anyone who doubts that squatter leadership could have mitigated the crisis, sparing tens of thousands of lives, should read James Fallow's piece in The Atlantic, "The 3 Weeks That Changed Everything." After the May 25th killing of George Floyd, a normal repug squatter would have summoned civil rights activists and law enforcement officials and called for peaceful protests while acknowledging a crisis and trying to fashion changes. Think of South Carolina repug Senator Tim Scott, author of a police reform measure on the important question of accountability. Scott's proposal is inadequate and justifiably criticized, but it's a serious and sincere effort. 45, by contrast, has sought to sow more racial discord for the past 6 weeks, threatening military action against largely peaceful protesters, praising memorials to pro-slavery leaders of the Confederacy, even retweeting a call for white power. There have been a few, if any, more grotesque squatteral gestures than 45 marching across Lafayette Square, after first having racial justice demonstrators dispersed with tear gas to stand in front of a church holding up a Bible like a fresh-caught fish. Friday's night screed in front of Mount Rushmore is perhaps a close second. Okay, pretending 45 could have risen above his insecurities and displayed leadership is like depicting Willie Sutton as a bank teller, not a bank robber, or Bernie Madoff as an investor champion rather than a Ponzi scheme cheat. Still, it's worth recalling. When 45 is trounced in November, or as my podcast partner James Carvell has been predicting, quits to avoid humiliation, he'll first blame it on the fake news and the deep state. Then it will be he was given an impossible hand. Truth is, if he had played his hand with any skill and integrity, it would have made a big difference for the health of the country and maybe for his own political fate.